Welcome or welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Maria and today's video is going to be a reading vlog, and it's basically going to be me trying to finish my TBR for June in 4 days. Yeah, I can tell you now I'm probably not going to be able to do that because I do still have quite a few books that I have on my TBR that I picked out for this month, but it's probably going to be more of a how much of my TBR can I finish within these next 4 days, because today is the 26th of June, so I have roughly 4.5 days to finish these, but I do have an event that I'm going to on Saturday, so most of that day is probably going to be taken out, so not a lot of time to get through these, but I do have a couple of priorities. So the first one I definitely want to read this month is Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. I have had this on my TBR for a little while. I bought the physical copy recently, and it's a book that has been on my mind for a long time as well, and I did put it on the TBR this month, and I don't want it to kind of roll over because it'll be one of those books that I just keep putting on a TBR and not picking up. So definitely want to get this read over the weekend. Then another one I would really like to get to this weekend is As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow. Again, this is a book that I've had on my TBR for a really long time. I do think both of these books are going to be pretty emotional, so probably being a little bit ambitious trying to read both of them over the weekend. But again, I just know that this is the type of book I'll put on my TBR, and if I don't read it in that month, I'll end up kind of deferring it, and it just rolls then for months while I'm getting motivated to read it. And I know I'm probably going to love both of these, so I think it's more intimidation that's putting me off starting them, that I know so many people love them and I'm just worried about what my reaction will be, but it's definitely not a reason to stop reading something, so definitely want to prioritise these two this weekend. And then the other three I still have left on my TBR are Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. This would be quite a good kind of light and fluffy read in between some of those, because I believe it's just going through her 20s, her love life, her friendships and things like that. It's a little bit of a memoir, but it is told in kind of a fictional way, so I think I can get the audiobook for this one from Libby, so again, might be a light and fluffy read I can put in between those two. I then have A Curse Carved in Bone by Danielle L. Jensen, and this one will be finishing a series, so I probably should prioritise this one, but it is a newer release, so it hasn't been on my TBR for as long, so I'm not sure if I'll definitely want to try and pick this up, but as I say, because it's finishing a series, I probably should prioritise this one a little bit more. And then this last one, I'm going to be completely honest, is probably not even going to get a side eye from me over the weekend, and that's The Will of the Many by James Islington. And I am really excited about this one. I do think that I will enjoy it. It's quite a hefty one, so this is a really long book, and I need to be realistic. I've got 4 days. There's not a chance of me finishing this one, as well as reading my priorities. So it wasn't my TBR, but I can pretty much say with finality that this isn't going to be on the TBR for the weekend. That being said, these are the 4 books I'm going to be trying to get to over the weekend. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to finish all of them. I think they're all around 400 pages or something like that. So, I mean, if I get a lot of reading time, I may be able to get through them, but it is a pretty ambitious TBR for a 4-day period. So we'll see how much of this I can get read. But as I say, my 2 priorities are Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler and As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow by Sofa Katawa. So I will be picking up one of these today. I think I'll start with this one. I just finished reading kind of a dystopian fantasy novel today, and I'm still kind of in that mood, so I think it would be a good time to start this one rather than changing it up and maybe getting jarred by a genre change. So I think the first book I'm going to read in this vlog is Parable of the Sower. And this one, all I know about it is that it is a dystopian novel. It was written quite some time ago, but what a lot of people say about it is that some of the themes that were written about in here, I think it might have been like the 80s or something like that, have actually come to play since this novel was written. So it's quite eerie to read it in that respect, where it was dystopian in the time that it was written, but some of the stuff in here actually isn't too far from reality or is happening within society today. And I think in this one we follow a world where basically the rich and powerful are the only people who get heard, are the only people that matter within this world. We're following a young woman who can feel the pain of others, and we're basically following her journey as she records everything she sees in this world and basically describes for us how broken it is and the dreams that she has to make a better world. And that's all I really know about it. I have heard that it's quite emotionally impactful. I've heard there's quite a bit of nuance in here around kind of the struggles of Black people, and certainly within America as well. There's quite a lot of parallels within there, so be really interested to read that and see how that is portrayed within the book. But overall, I just heard that the messaging in here is really important as well. So even though I do think it will be emotionally tolling, it's definitely a book I've been really intrigued to read and excited to pick up as well. And while I'm in that kind of dystopian mood, I think it's a great time to pick this one up. So yeah, I'm going to start this today. I'll read a little bit of it probably when I'm around 20 to 30% in. I'll jump on to give you an update of how I'm feeling and kind of maybe be able to give you a bit more of a synopsis than I've been able to give you from the blurb. But yeah, overall really excited to jump into this. So I'll let you know once I've started, and I'll give you all my initial thoughts and feelings. Lovelies. So I've just been reading for the last couple of hours and I've managed to get around 20% into this one, and let's just say this one is pretty dark straight out of the gate. It's definitely not pulling any punches with the type of dystopian world that we're living in here. And as I say, our main character is a young woman who kind of has this hyper empathy syndrome where she can feel other people's pain. If other people are in pain, she feels it physically herself. And essentially we're in this world, and it's set in 2024 and 2025, so interesting year to be reading it. But essentially in this world, she's part of a community which are not the poorest of the poor, but certainly not rich. You know, they're probably what you would class as, it's a bit different in America and in the UK and Ireland, what we call it, but kind of your working to middle class. As I say, they're not the poorest of the poor, but they're certainly not rich in any way. And within the story so far, we're basically getting diary excerpts almost from Lauren, who is the main character. She's 15. And she's kind of just describing the world around her and desolate situation that they have themselves in. It just feels like, you know, there's this constant kind of feeling of peril, of danger, of unrest, because they do have a wall around their community, but there's much poorer people obviously trying to come in to steal from them, and there's some terrible things happening within the community as well. And basically straight out of the gate, when you start reading this, it's within 2 or 3 pages. You'll need to check out trigger warnings for this one, because there is definitely a few things that are mentioned and talked about. And I mean, it is dystopian and it can kind of come with the nature of some of these books, but I would just say just check some trigger warnings, because this is probably one of the darker dystopian books that I've read. I haven't read The Handmaid's Tale, so I know that this does get compared to that quite often, but I have read things like 1984, and even though I know that they end up being dark, it wasn't so much straight out of the gate as far as I remember. It's been quite a while since I read that book, so maybe I need to reread that book as well. But yeah, this is definitely a pretty dark themed book and just will not be pulling any punches, I don't think, from what I've read so far. But in terms of the way the story's been told, I think the first kind of few chapters I wasn't too sure. You know, we were getting a lot thrown at us in terms of information about the society, but now that I've kind of got into the flow of it, I am, enjoy is the wrong word, but I am intrigued and interested to see where the story goes. There's a lot of discussion at the minute about kind of morality and religion, because her father is a preacher and she's kind of discussing how she feels about religion, where her beliefs lie, and yeah, it's just all really interesting, very thought-provoking already within this first 20%, and that's around 70 pages or something like that, so it's already been incredibly thought-provoking, and I can definitely see why people are saying there's parallels to this world. Obviously this is a bit of an exaggerated version of maybe some of the things that are happening today, but especially in the last year, some of the stuff that's in here is probably feeling a bit more relevant than it did when it was written, and it was written in the 90s. I think I said the 70s, but when you get to my grand old age, you do feel like the 90s are the 70s, so it was written in the 90s, in the early 90s. I think it was 1993 when it was published, so just really interesting getting that perspective from someone who was writing it back then, kind of a dystopian future that they thought 2024, 2025 could be. So yeah, a little bit eerie reading it in that sense, but really intrigued, already kind of immersed in the story and where it's going to go, already feeling kind of emotionally tied to the main character Lauren as well, really rooting for her and really rooting for people to listen to her, to follow her, because she's talking a lot of sense really up until this point. So yeah, enjoy isn't the right word, because there's a lot of, when I'm reading this, I'm pretty much grimacing within every page, so enjoy is definitely not the right word, but I'm definitely intrigued by the story and interested by the story, and really glad that I am picking this up and making it a priority this month. And yeah, if that wasn't enough emotional toll on me, I am going to actually pick up As Long as Lemon Trees Grow today. I do think that I'll probably read it later tonight. I do have it on my Kindle as well, so it'll be better for me to be able to read that kind of before bedtime. I don't have this on my Kindle, and it's just easier to read from my Kindle at night time, so I probably will start As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow later tonight, as I think I do have the audiobook for that one as well, so I can listen to it a little bit while I'm getting ready for bed and stuff like that. So yeah, I'll probably read that as kind of my nighttime and my morning read. I do want to try and read this when I can physically read it, because I have started tabbing it a little bit. I don't think you can see that, but I've got some tabs in there, and I'll probably annotate it after I've finished, but just tabbing some of the quotes that are really resonating with me, ones that are maybe showing those parallels between what was in here and kind of what is happening today. And yeah, so far this is pretty hard hitting, so as I say, I'll start As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow later on tonight, probably see how far I get into that by tomorrow morning, give you an update on that and if I've read any more of this. But yeah, I have a feeling my emotions are definitely going to be triggered this week. Hi lovelies. Okay, so a couple of reading updates. So firstly, I am now around 50% into Parable of the Sower, and this is dark. This is very dark and quite disturbing, and what's most disturbing about it is that I think a lot of people have said, and some of the things that I'd seen about this were that it doesn't seem that far-fetched from a reality in terms of what could potentially happen within our world, what is happening probably in certain countries within this world. And yes, when you read it as a Western person, let's say, in a peaceful country, it feels exaggerated. Really, if you look at the world today, this isn't that far-fetched. This is not that far-fetched in terms of a concept, in terms of things that could be happening. It does read a little bit almost like post-apocalyptic or something like that, but just without that side of it. You know, it's kind of what would happen to the world when humanity starts to disintegrate and people don't kind of have morals anymore. Mostly what happens when people become desperate. You know, I think a lot of what the theme is here is that there are certain powers within this world that do have the capability to make society as a whole kind of desperate and dependent on them as well. And I think this is showing some of the harsh realities of that and how that will be quite divisive. It will truly be kind of every man, woman, child for themselves. There will be no limitations on who is vilified. You know, there will be a huge us and them. And I think a lot of the themes in here are obviously, as I was saying at the start, it's to do with, you know, poverty and wealth and it kind of dividing the masses. And even though the characters in here aren't really that wealthy when you're reading about them, to others, you're always going to be more fortunate. You're always going to be a target. You know, should you just be grateful for what you have? And yeah, it's a pretty tough read. It is a pretty tough read. I have been, as I say, grimacing for quite a few of the scenes in here. It doesn't pull any punches. It's definitely just getting right to the point. It doesn't sugarcoat anything. So yeah, it's been a pretty tough book to read. Saying that I'm enjoying it is not necessarily the right word, but I am appreciating the story and I'm appreciating the narrative, and it's definitely very thought-provoking. So for that side of it, I'm enjoying it, but it's not an enjoyable book, if that makes sense. It makes sense to me, but I don't want to say, oh yes, I'm enjoying this, because it's not entertaining in any way, but it's very thought-provoking and it's very well written, because I'm definitely having some visceral reactions to some of the scenes in here. So yeah, 50% through, and I think I said yesterday that my plan was to read As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow as well, but I read like 5 pages of that and I can't read those at the same time. I cannot read both of these books at the same time because I just don't think my mental capacity could handle that. So yeah, because of that and because of kind of the themes being just too deep for me to read both of those at the same time, I did end up picking up Dolly Alderton's Everything I Know About Love and really loved this. And I didn't actually realise, I looked up Dolly Alderton because immediately from reading this and from starting this off, I was like, this is my experience. How does she know me so well? But we're exactly the same age. She's born a couple of months before me, so we've probably basically lived the same life. So this one, I think I said before, it is a bit of a memoir, but it's almost told in a fictional setting. But it's basically her just going through some of her memories and her relationships. So it's everything I know about love, but that includes kind of friendships and what we go through in our teens, what we go through in our 20s, in our 30s, kind of how our relationships with certain groups will change, whether that is boyfriends, girlfriends, your best friends, whatever it may be. She's just exploring all of that. And as I say, I think because we're the same age, she's kind of exploring a lot of things that I experienced in my teens. So one of the things she was talking about was MSN Messenger and how that was basically your life as a teen when we were growing up, and you used to do this, and it's just kind of a world known thing, and we all did it, which is so bizarre, but we all did it. When you were on MSN, if there was a boy or a girl that you were interested in or you fancied and they were online, you were online, but they weren't chatting to you for some reason, you would log off quickly, log back on so that they would see, you know, Maria is online. And it just seems to be a universal thing that everyone done. But it just had me cackling at how crazy we were growing up. But yeah, she's just going through a lot of those experiences and kind of, you know, everything she knew about love at 15. And some of them are completely ridiculous, you know, but it's kind of how you feel as a 15-year-old, what love looks like. You know, you want to get married when you've had loads of life experience at 27, you know, which when you get to 27 you realise, yeah, I haven't really had as much life experience as I thought I would. I mean, I personally got married at 26, but when I look back now at 26-year-olds, I'm thinking, oh, don't do it yet, there's no rush. You know, you can wait until you're a bit older. I just think it's been really nostalgic. I've really loved kind of the tone of the story. It's made me really excited for some of her other fictional works. I know she has a couple of romances and literary fictions that I do have in my TBR, and from reading this I definitely think I enjoy her humour. I enjoy her tone, and it's kind of the perfect break between reading Parable of the Sower because it's so lighthearted, it's so nostalgic, easily digestible. I'm listening to the audiobook as well, which is narrated by Dolly Alderton, so it's basically her voice telling us her story, and yeah, just really been enjoying it. So ended up getting around 50% into this as well. It's been really bingeable and really easily digestible, as I say, so probably be finishing this one out pretty soon, and it'll kind of coincide with Parable of the Sower, but hoping to get at least one of these finished today. Then I'll continue with the other tomorrow morning, but I'll probably try and finish Parable of the Sower today because, as I say, I'm trying to read that as much as possible when I physically can hold it, because I'm trying to tab it and annotate it as well. So if I have a bit of sit down reading time, I'm probably going to pick up this one. But yeah, I managed to get through quite a bit of these since this time yesterday. You know, I've basically read 50% of both of them, so could have finished one book within a day, so pretty chuffed with that. So I have a little bit of time this evening. I'll probably read. Today is Friday. Tomorrow I do have the book event that I'm going to, which will basically be most of the day. So I'm not sure how much reading I'll get done tomorrow, but I probably will check in with you in the morning once I've done a little bit of reading. I'll probably listen to one of the audiobooks while I'm getting ready. But yeah, we'll see how tomorrow goes. Not too sure how much reading I'll get done, but I may manage to finish one of these tonight. So either way, I'll be on tomorrow to give you an update on where I am. Hi lovely, so it is now Sunday, and as I was saying I think in my last clip, I wasn't able to give you an update yesterday because I was at a book signing, so I was out of the house most of the day. It will be in another video, so it'll probably be in a Do Bookish Things With Me video coming up soon, so definitely keep an eye out for that. But I did manage to get a good bit of reading done yesterday because I did have the audiobook for both of my reads, and I did actually manage to get them finished, so we'll talk about this one first. And I think the main thing I have in terms of feelings about this one is I didn't necessarily enjoy my reading time with this, but I highly recommend it. It's a book that I will recommend to basically anyone to read this one, but with the preface that this is an incredibly hard read. It's not an easy, light and fluffy read in any point in the book. You know, it starts off as it means to go on. It's pretty brutal. It's very stark in its description of things, and it definitely had me grimacing the whole way through. It was giving me crazy dreams, and in terms of emotionally as well, I do think it's still kind of impacting me in terms of how hard it hits. So really great book, really amazing writing, and to get such visceral reactions from me is honestly really amazing. So I do highly recommend this one. I really enjoyed how our main protagonist was kind of continually searching for hope the entire way through this, even though everything is so desolate. You know, it's almost like a post-apocalyptic world, but the reason that it is so scary at times is because it wasn't kind of a big bang thing that's supposed to happen. With most science fiction that you read, there's kind of like robots take over the world, or there's something that happens that creates this post-apocalyptic world. And with this, it is just things that we're facing today. So climate change, poverty, and so much of this echoes how our world is today. And yes, as I say, a lot of this is a little bit exaggerated from where we are, but this could very much happen. I can very much see this happening within, you know, the next 20 years if things were to continue the way they are. It's probably happening in certain countries within the world already. And I think that's what makes this so hard hitting when you're reading it, is that even though it was the early 90s and Octavia Butler maybe had no idea of where our world would be right now, it almost feels like it was a prediction. Maybe she's a few years out, you know. So yeah, I just think with this one, definitely approach with caution. Go into it when you're in the right frame of mind to be able to deal with something like this, because it is incredibly heavy. So as I say, my reading experience wasn't enjoyable as such, but I was very impressed with this book, and I definitely do recommend it. I do think there were times that it was repetitive because, as I say, the main protagonist throughout is trying to kind of find hope in this world. And part of the way that she does that is almost trying to set up her own ethos or ideology. It's not quite a religion because she's not really someone who believes in God, but she's trying to find ways to basically understand human nature and how we can all connect as humans in this kind of disparate world that they're living in. And her ideology was kind of repeated throughout the story, and some of it did get a little bit repetitive. I felt like we'd went over it before, so it didn't feel as insightful as she was going through some of it, but it definitely was. And other than that, I didn't really have any problems with this book other than one slight minor storyline within here, which I just didn't think was necessary for the story to go where it's going. But again, minor niggles, so I would probably end up in around a 4.5 for this one, just because of those two things, which are actual critiques of the book. But other than that, I think it's a really amazing book. I do think it's a book that a lot of people should read. It's just eerie, I think, when you're reading it, because it is so close to kind of our world at the moment. So yeah, main piece of advice is just to be of a good mindset going into this one. And then obviously I did also finish this one, so Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton, and I just really loved this. I think, as I was saying, it's very much probably because we're of exactly the same age. We basically have lived the same lives in terms of, you know, pop culture and things like that. So a lot of things that she was referencing of her young years and things that she'd done as a teenager were very much what I would have done as well. And just in terms of the friend dynamic as well, I might have been a slightly different friend within her group. So I maybe wasn't the Dolly of the group, but the dynamics that she was explaining and kind of the love that you have within that friendship, within your friend groups, and kind of how those relationships change as you grow old, was just really perfectly displayed in here. I think she encapsulated it really beautifully with quite a lot of comedy in here as well. And I actually think this would be a great book for anyone to read who is maybe in their 20s and struggling with a friend group, or kind of struggling with the changes that you may perceive within your friend group within those years, because things are maybe a little bit different now, but I definitely know for us millennials that that's kind of when things change a lot. You know, people get married, people have maybe children, and all those girls' holidays maybe sometimes come to a stop, you know, because people have different responsibilities, and it kind of reminds you that you do need to work at your friendships as well. You know, as much as your relationship in a romantic sense is something you need to work on, your friendships are something you should definitely work on too, because everyone needs that. You need that connection. You need those people that you can go to that aren't family, maybe aren't your spouse as well. And it can be easy to forget all the things you've kind of been through together. So really love that exploration in here, and kind of almost the advice that it was giving, that, you know, just because you're not coupled up within your 20s doesn't mean you don't have love in your life. It doesn't mean you're not worthy of love. Everyone moves at their own pace. Everyone hits milestones at different times, and really just don't compare yourself to other people, because people can be all sorted in their early 20s, and at my age I know people who have been divorced and thought they were with the love of their life in their early 20s, and it just didn't work out that way. But yeah, this one I'm struggling with what to rate it. I really enjoyed it, you know, I have no complaints about it. I really liked the structure in here. I really liked that in here there were little tidbits of like recipes and things like that as well, but because it's kind of a memoir of her life, I'm not really sure how to rate it, so I probably will give it 5 stars because I have to rate it something. And to be honest, as I say, I have no critiques about the book in terms of the story. I thought it was really fun. It was a really bingeable read, really easy read as well, and the audiobook was really good because it was narrated by herself as well. So highly recommend this if you're in between books, if you're looking for a good palate cleanser or something like that, or if you're wanting to dip your toe into non-fiction. This is maybe a good segue, because this is one of the first non-fictions I've read, and yes, it's kind of told in a almost literary fiction form. It's still non-fiction. It's based on all of her kind of experiences and things like that, so might be a good way to try out some non-fiction. It's part of the reason I picked it up, and it's definitely made me intrigued to read more of her fiction as well, because she has a couple of, I think they're romantic fictions that I've got in my TBR list, that this has definitely moved it up there because I really liked her humour within this, so hopefully I'll be able to get those on the list soon. And then obviously the next book I did want to prioritise within this video is As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow, but I'm going to be completely honest that I just don't think I'm in the headspace to be reading this after reading Parable of the Sower. It did definitely have quite a huge emotional toll on me in terms of just themes in there and some of the things that happen in there, so I just don't think I'm quite ready to pick up this yet. So I'll probably pick this up as one of my first books in July, because it is still a priority for me. I definitely want to get it read, so I don't want to kind of to go back on my TBR cart. So I think what I'll do is just put this on my July TBR to make sure it's read. Okay, so the lighting and the angle might have slightly changed because I had to just run out and get a tire changed, but what I was saying is, because of the emotional toll of Parable of the Sower, I've decided not to read As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow just yet, and I am going to pick up A Curse Carved in Bone by Danielle L. Jensen instead, just to give me kind of, not necessarily a light and fluffy, I think there will be some darker themes in here, but just something a bit more fun, a bit more lighthearted, to make sure I don't get into a reading slump or anything after reading that. So probably going to start this today, see how far I can get into it, and hopefully I'll be able to finish this before the end of the month. And yeah, plan is just to read a bit more today, probably have a bit of a chill, might be out for a bit of the day because obviously it is Sunday, so it's a weekend, so see how much time I actually get to read today, and I'll come back to you tomorrow once I have an update. Hi lovely, so just thought I'd jump on and give you a quick update on where I am with A Curse Carved in Bone. So I'm around 40% into this one, and it basically kicks off exactly where the first one ends. And if you haven't heard of this series, it's definitely based on a lot of Norse mythology, kind of the mythology around the Shield Maiden. And in the first book we follow Freya, who at the start of it is in a really unhappy and abusive marriage. She's desperate to try and kind of get away from her husband, and the opportunity actually comes up where her husband ends up selling her to this Jarl because she actually has a drop of blood from the Shield Maiden within her, and basically there's a prophecy around that means that anyone who controls her will control the country. So this Jarl jumps at the chance to be able to do that and to be able to purchase her, and she's basically going to be his wife in name only. You know, he doesn't want anything from her, but she ends up catching the eye of the Jarl's son, and the story goes from there. In this one, I think with Danielle L. Jensen, a lot of what she does is, it is romance heavy, but I do think there's a lot of political machinations in there to keep you intrigued. There's always a good twist in the end. So even though a lot of her plots do feel a little bit predictable, by the time you get to the end, they may be predictable twists, but the way she does it is usually pretty good, and it's usually really entertaining to read. So yeah, I was really excited for this one to come out because it's a duology, so this is finishing a series for me. And as I say, the second book really kicks off exactly where we left in book one, and let's just say there's tensions going on there between the main characters. There's a lot of change going on. We're moving locations and really enjoying kind of widening that understanding of this world, widening our understanding of some of the other clans that we were introduced to in the last book. I would say it's probably going a little bit slower than I had anticipated, but I'm only 40% in, and I really think something's going to happen in the next 10%, just with the way some of the tensions are rising to pique my interest again. But still really enjoying this one. Definitely what I needed after reading Parable of the Sower. I don't think I could have jumped into anything too deep. I need something that's just a little bit easier on the brain and on the emotions as well, quite honestly, because I'm still reeling from reading that. It's still very much in my brain. So this is definitely distracting me. A much easier read than I expect As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow is going to be. So really glad I decided to pick this one up. Probably going to be able to finish this today. So I do think I'm going to be able to finish this in my June TBR, which is great. So let's see how much I can get read today, see if I can finish it, and even though I won't be finishing my actual June TBR, I'll still be really happy that I managed to read 3 books in 4 days, and they're not short books, you know, they were pretty considerable books. So if I do manage to finish this today, I'll be really happy about that. But yeah, probably just going to be reading today, reading a bit more this evening, see if I can make it through this. I do have the audiobook, which again does make it easier because I can listen to that while I'm doing chores and things like that. So definitely think I'll be able to finish this one. But yeah, either way, I'll probably jump on later tonight or tomorrow morning just to let you know how I got on with this one and wrap up the video. Hi lovelies, okay, so I have now finished A Curse Carved in Bone, and I did really enjoy this. I do think that it was a lot slower paced at the start than I would have liked. I think we could have got a bit more plot development within that first 40%. So I did kind of feel like there was a bit of an issue with pacing on this one, and there were quite a few twists in here, which is kind of Danielle L. Jensen's signature, but I don't feel like they were as twisty as she usually does. She usually gets me with them, but there were a few twists on the twists when we got to the end, so she still got me there. She still got me by the time we got to the end, but generally I don't see them coming, so I was surprised that I guessed a few as we were going along. But yeah, I just think overall this is a really solid romantasy series, especially if you like Norse mythology. If you're looking to get into the series, I do think this would be a good place to start because there's political machinations in here, but they're not too intricate, they're not too convoluted, you know, it's not going to be difficult for you to understand, and the magic system isn't too intricate either, so definitely be a good place to start. And I would highly recommend her series, The Bridge Kingdom, as well, if you are looking to get into this series. But as I say, with this one, I think I overall really enjoyed it. Definitely a good kind of palate cleanser after reading Parable of the Sower. I do think I'm probably in a bit of a strange mindset after reading that, so it may have impacted my enjoyment of this a little bit, but overall ended up rating this one 4 stars. It probably is around a 4-star series for me with this one and the first book, but I really love that we got a bit more of that Norse mythology within the second one. I do think that we got a bit more of the lore in there, and I really love the way she kind of integrated it into the story as well. That was really interesting, so it definitely kept me hooked in terms of seeing where the narrative would go and how that would be woven into the story. So yeah, all in all, a pretty enjoyable read, and definitely happy to be able to close out the series on this one. fun. So yeah, that's everything. That's everything for this week. A bit of a strange combination of reads this week. Definitely very varied, which I suppose is a good thing. It's a good thing to vary up your genres, but not really sure how I'm feeling after reading those. I may need to take a bit of a break or read a fluffy romance or something just to get my headspace in the right frame of mind for starting my July TBR. But yeah, if you've read any of these, definitely let me know. Put it in the comments below, any of your thoughts and feelings, or if any of these are on your TBR, or if there's any books you think I would enjoy based on my enjoyment of these. Definitely put your recommendations in the comments below. And if you like this video, do remember to give it a like, and if you want to see more from me, remember to subscribe. I post 2 videos per week and it's videos like this, so reading vlogs, TBR jars, book shopping, all good bookish things like that. Other than that, thanks so much for watching this one. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one soon. Bye!